Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's podcast is about self-confidence and body imagery. Today we're going to go back to my youth from the street ball courts to college and that time and how vulnerable I felt as a young adolescent male in that time period. So one of the things that I think is quite unique looking at where I am today, chasing this physique competition and working on my body and constantly looking at imagery and working hard to transform. And, at 50 years old, I'm probably in the best shape I've been in the past 20 years. But again, it's changed. Looking back, when we were talking about this topic to bring to my audience today, it was pretty vulnerable. Like I was thinking about that and the feelings that went around it. And it kind of brought me back to Dr. Trainer and seeing these young kids walking into the gym and meeting me the first time in my early 30s and 40s as a professional skills trainer and basketball trainer. And I was thinking about my parents' first house, and there was a awesome street ball court, or back then it was the back of a grammar school. And there was an after school pickup basketball game that would happen all summer long for as long as I can remember. And I believe I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. I was just allowed to start venturing out and walk across the sod field and climb the fence or go around the fence and play with these older guys. And most of them were out of high school and in their early 20s. The first time I got to the court, for me, it was surreal because there were guys, just dunking basketballs and making crazy moves, and they were super athletic. You could tell they were kind of all family or related. They were, they were super, chirpy with each other and a lot of high energy. And I definitely was the extra guy and the youngest. And so it being summer, I remember, it was shirts and skins. And of course I got picked the last guy and I was skins, right? So shirt comes off. I have, a caved in chest, spaghetti arms and legs. And, the good thing about it, I was pretty tall for my age. So I was all arms and legs, but I was very aware that I didn't look like anybody else on the court. And that was the beginning that I realized like how competitive I am as an individual, because when I was out there and I was definitely getting knocked around and, I'd get the occasional rebound or a putback or something like that and score a basket. And for me, it was like winning the Olympic gold because these guys were so huge that if I was getting hit, I was getting knocked into the 5th row of the stands. But the biggest thing was, finishing and getting the high fives and that camaraderie of being in a game and being the young guy and getting welcomed back to come back again when they were playing the next day, but leaving and walking home with my ball and thinking, man, I got to work on my body, because I definitely felt it. I was insecure. Luckily, these guys were a good bit older, so they would definitely, call me, kind names, but like Young Buck or Spaghetti Arms or whatever, like it was kind of funny, thinking back at it. But, that time frame was such a time of like muscle bound action heroes. You had Sylvester Stallone and Arnold and Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris, and God, I'm dating myself here, but everybody was a physique. So of course, I think Arnold and Sly were the best at putting their workouts in a lot of their movies. So of course I broke it down to chin-ups, pull-ups, and push-ups around the clock. And I have to say shout out to Mom Dukes, because my mom could cook her ass off. And I just started drinking milk by the gallons because the campaign back then, we were kids. And I think for all my boys that are listening to this can appreciate this is that funny commercial. It was, I'm drinking milk, and the kid was super skinny. And then all of a sudden he turned around and the kid was, it was a smoke show. And he was all jacked up and muscly. And I started drinking like 1 gallon to 2 gallons of milk a day. And, just eating eggs and just literally, eating my face off and trying to transform. And not even did I know anything about nutrition. I just figured, at that stage of my life, that if I wanted to grow, I had to eat, I had to drink, I had to do push-ups, and I had to do everything that I had to do to get where I wanted to be. Fast forward, with each summer, I'd be getting a little bit bigger. And, unknown to any kid, I think that there was a development coming in and I had to move, probably going into, might have been a little earlier. I think I moved my 7th grade summer. I did 2 years at a different school in a different home. And I hadn't seen those guys. So I had went back to that area like 3 years later. And now I'm 6'3", probably, a freshman in high school. I'm 175 pounds. And probably the last time they saw me, I was probably 5'9", 130 pounds. So I was a sizable difference. And, that was the beginning for me that I realized how important it was to have that body imagery and awareness in sports. And it carried over to me in meeting my kids as I, fast forward and go through my high school, college career and graduate school and began training, that I saw these young kids coming in and I could see the looks on their faces as they saw older kids. And it brought me back to that time. And I thought it was so important and it resonated with me then. And I think that's what made me such a special trainer. Because remember, for anybody that's been a loyal listener to the Tough Love podcast, I was paralyzed, literally, as I started high school, I was paralyzed. So I went from being super physical and thought I was going to play elite college basketball to, being laid up in a bed for a summer. And, so again, body imagery, and confidence, it was, it rocked me, and, why is that? And again, whether it's young kids getting braces or a haircut they don't like or clothing, et cetera, one thing for me, it was very much a situation that I found myself, looking for something to kind of tie onto and draw, I guess, courage and hope and all those kind of things that I think a lot of kids look towards a coach. As I became doc in my early 30s and started working with kids and said, I didn't have that person. I had great parents and, my sister was athletic and older. I think for our generation, it was the kids you met on the pickup courts. For me, it was, it was a park in Freehold Township. I'd go down to play in Lakewood sometimes. And, I think I'd go play down in Toms River and the reality was the better you got, you wanted to go out to further venture to kind of let people know how good you were. And that came with confidence. That came with that body awareness that you knew you were physically, gifted or you were going to work on that. And at the same time, I think the biggest takeaway for today's podcast is about pushing yourself. And when I got to courts where I wasn't the most physical, I wasn't even in the top 25%, I think that inspired me. I didn't get frustrated. I got hungry. It kept me hungry, maybe even hungrier. And, it was something I was thinking about because I see so many Instagram posts now and everybody's complaining and, they're talking about, struggling with sobriety and struggling with this and struggling with that. And I wanted to reflect on, look back to what made you. And for me, it was being an athlete, being athletic and getting my athleticism back after I was paralyzed. I worked so hard and, jumping rope, my parents did whatever they could and whatever they could afford, like whether building boxes or God knows I took out a bunch of their picnic tables doing plyometrics, flying over picnic tables and sometimes landing on them. Sorry, Mom. And, and just doing whatever I could to work on my athleticism. And, thankfully, God, in God's grace, I got my athleticism back and was able to come back and play high school and college basketball and beyond. But again, if I didn't believe so much in myself, from the self-doubt and seeing those little wins, I think that was huge for me. And, and I think every little kid can relate to that and say, they do 20 push-ups and they look in the mirror and they give a flex and, and here I am at 50. Now I'm going into mirrors and I'm still flexing and it makes me laugh. But at the same time, it's that playful, youthful energy that makes us feel alive and makes us feel, that self appreciation to, doing the hard work and seeing the results and everything that comes with it. I think, the only difference is as we get older, we have to work that much harder. And so again, looking back at, that time, it was so instrumental. And I remember from going away to high school and getting sick in high school, then my parents blessed me with an extra year of high school and sending me to prep school and coming home. And that was probably the most competitive basketball that I had ever played, and talent that I'd ever seen. And I remember being in the gym and, getting there in the summer, and there was one freak athlete, after the next rolling in the gym. And it was funny because we got there, it was like midday. It was up in Milford, Connecticut at the time. I think the school may even be still open. It was called Milford Academy. And I'm watching these guys play pickup. I think it's the basketball team. And they are flying over each other, dunking. They're just doing amazing athletic feats. And then one of the assistant coaches rolled up and was like, the football team's pretty good, right? And I laughed and go, God, if this is a football team, I am literally, here I am again, facing that self body awareness and confidence. I'm thinking to myself, am I good enough to be here? And I think that's something that everybody faces every day in business, life, relationships, school, sports, the workplace. And yes, you are. You're absolutely good enough to be there. And, what it taught me, and even though I may not came away playing at the highest level of college basketball, it taught me that if you want something and you set a clear path and you are repetitive, you are consistent, you can get there and you can achieve, what you thought was once impossible by just outworking everyone. And obviously Derek Jeter wasn't relevant back then, but he'd always said, there might be somebody that has more talent, but there won't be somebody that will outwork me. And I think that was something that's kind of stayed with me throughout my, early adult and adult years to this day, is there's always going to be somebody that's more gifted. But most times I've always felt that those people take that for granted. And at the end of the day, if I stay consistent and I keep working, eventually I'm going to take them. And I think that is a huge part of today's story, is just being consistent, like my morning routine. Sometimes I feel like I'm extremely redundant, like I'm putting stuff out there, but it's that consistency, whether it's people that get up and run or get up and do 50 push-ups every day, or, get on their treadmill, their Peloton, whatever it is. It's that consistency that sets their mind into action, that keeps you going and keeps you motivated, that says, I can, and I can do it for one more day. And then all of a sudden one day turns into a week turns into a month, and a month turns into a year. And you look back and you say, man, I can't believe how far I came. So again, where this started was childhood sports, and, being so intimidated of those guys, back at good old Ardena school in the back playground, to looking back and being thankful for them encouraging me to keep working, and for them saying, hey man, get on those push-ups and pull-ups and the chin-ups. And, we're going to see you again soon. You're going to be killing it. And, I always kept that in my heart and in my head. And I said, you know what? I believe. And, fast forward to my training years, and I've had, I've been blessed and so grateful to have worked with so many amazing kids. And maybe they weren't all amazing athletes, but I had a lot of amazing athletes. And the one thing that I brought with me every time I showed up to the court to work was I never let them down. I always would show them, regardless if I was hurt, if I was tired. I saw that Nike ad, and about, do it when you're tired, do it when you're angry, do it when you're sad, just do it. And, that was always me with training. I always felt like those kids deserve that energy. They need to see what it takes to be great. And greatness is a mindset. Greatness is a vision. Greatness is not what you walked in the gym. It's how you walked out. And every day, if you walk in with that same level of belief, that same level of effort, that same level of want and desire, you can achieve just about anything. And, with that being said, that was probably, 15 of the most impactful years of my life that, I still get text messages to this day. Like, one of my favorite athletes just got engaged, and her fiance now is starting physical therapy school, who has worked alongside us in all of our locations. And, perfect example, now she's a high school coach at one of the top coaches in the state. She had a remarkable standout collegiate career. And she was one of my kids, like myself, that had that imagery issue, confidence issue. And, we started with belief. And I'll never forget, we were in her grandfather's middle school, high school, and there was this little track in the multi-purpose basketball court. And she was your typical short conference, Monmouth County elite shooter. But to be a college player and be a complete player, in the recruiting of basketball, for you hoopers out there, you'll understand this, but you need to have 5 tools. And for her, she needed to become a playmaker and a ball handler beyond just being a great player in the short conference. And as much as we worked on shooting, if we shot 1,000 times, we dribbled 5,000 reps, because I told her, I said, I already know you can shoot from 30 feet, but can you dribble from 100? And can you break somebody down off the dribble? And that rattled her. And you're talking about somebody that was an exceptional academic. She was extremely conscientious. And, it was my mission to make her do one thing, believe in herself. And there were so many stories, so many athletes. And those moments for her, she didn't realize that started with me as that young boy out there on that playground saying, hey, I can do this. 20 plus years later, I'm teaching people saying, hey, you could do this. And that's today's podcast. That's what it's about. Where you are today, that's a starting ground. Let that resonate. Let that soak in. And if you have a mental picture where you want to go, what you want to be, what you want to do, start writing it down. Even if it's start in the morning with 5 things you want to do for each day, whether that's eating good, getting a workout in, making sure you're doing everything you need to be doing. And every day, you have 7 days a week. That's 35, that's 35 times to be successful, right? And start grading yourself. Look at it on a Sunday and keep track of that. And then all of a sudden, look at it at the end of the week, look at the end of week 2, week 3, week 4, and then grade yourself for the month. You string 3 months, 4 months together, you're going to see huge changes, maybe unrecognizable changes. And that's why I kind of want to change the direction of my podcast when it's just me talking to the camera, is letting people know that change starts with first a thought, and that it is so critical to have that deep thought to say, hey, I'm not happy where I am right now. How can I be better? How can I improve myself? Whether it's financial, physical, family, whatever is bothering you, what's the plan? And once you establish a plan, then you got to hit it. One of the biggest things that I've been working on in the last couple of years is going from dreamer to doer. I've come up with so many amazing ideas, but actualizing them, putting into play, that's my weakness. And so I've been, doing a much better job of kind of keeping my dreams to myself and more going after the meat and potatoes and putting the infrastructure of the dream together, and then saying, here I am, here's the dream. At any rate, each of these podcasts, these next couple, they're going to be short, powerful, and to the point. Today was about remember where you started. Be grateful and thankful for how far you've come. Celebrate the wins. Remind yourself that those losses that happened along the way, they were actually probably more important than the wins, because they kind of get burned into that frontal lobe and they remind you that maybe you didn't work hard enough. Maybe there is a person out there working harder than you. And just maybe that those moments will keep you going for that one more rep, that one more try, so that way you could be even better than you ever once thought was possible. So again, if you enjoyed this podcast today, share it, like it, forward it. We look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you so much. Be well.